The Arkansas eviction process follows the same general eviction processes as every other state. Send a clear written notice, fill out the forms, serve the tenant, attend the trial, and wait judgment. But of course, every eviction process is different and dependent on the lease or rental agreement signed by the tenant and the landlord. It's always best to exercise meticulous file keeping to avoid errors that the tenant could exploit. In this video, I will detail a summary for landlords to refer to when evicting a tenant in Arkansas. Now, make sure to confirm procedures with your local court to make sure that the entire process goes as smoothly as possible. Welcome back, Loopers. My name is Sydney, and I'm a content creator here at DoorLoop, and welcome to our state-by-state eviction series. If you're actually looking for another state's eviction laws, make sure to check out our evictions playlist. And if you're looking for Arkansas rental forms or eviction guides, you can download a ton of free resources with the link in the description. Now, let's hop into the process for an Arkansas eviction. Quick disclaimer that I'm not an attorney and this is not legal advice. I'm just here to do a general overview. So first, we need to go over the reasons for an eviction. The first reason is failure to comply with rent deadlines. A tenant's rent is late in Arkansas if they've been unable to pay it for at least 5 days. If rent still has not been paid within that time, a landlord can give the tenant notice to move out of the rental unit before the notice expires. If they remain in the rental property even after the time given to them ends, the landlord can start filing for an eviction. Another reason is violation of the lease or rental agreement. The rental lease agreement has to be upheld by both the tenant and the landlord for the entire duration of the rental period. Agreements may vary from tenant to tenant, of course, but if a tenant violates any terms from the lease agreement, the landlord must issue a 14-day notice to comply. If the tenant resolves the issues on time, the eviction process does not continue. Lease violations may include disrupting the other tenants with loud activity, smoking in a non-smoking area, keeping pets in pet-free properties, and more. If the tenant fails to resolve the violations on time, then the landlord may continue with the eviction. Another reason is conducting illegal activity. If the tenant has engaged in illegal behavior within the property, the landlord is not required to give the tenant written notice before starting the eviction process. Some examples of illegal activities are involvement in the unlawful distribution of alcohol, theft, violence, assault, and prostitution. Landlords are advised to keep a close eye on their tenants to make sure illegal behavior does not go unnoticed. Another reason is non-renewal of the lease after the rental period ends. In Arkansas, landlords cannot evict a tenant or force them to vacate the property without probable cause. As long as the tenant does not violate any rules, they can stay till their rental period ends. Landlords are not obligated to remind their tenants to renew or vacate the property unless stated in the lease or rental agreement. Now, before filing an eviction with the court, you need to issue the tenant a notice to comply. You can either download the free PDF or Word template that can be found in the blog link below, or you can create your own Arkansas eviction notice from a step-by-step wizard that guides you through the entire process to make sure you're submitting the legally correct notice. Now, keep in mind that at the end of this wizard, it may ask for a small fee at the end, but it is a small price to pay to ensure legal compliance and protection. The last thing you want to do is go to court only to find out you didn't even do the first process correct. The eviction process can only begin after the issuance of a written notice. The landlord must have allowed enough time to pass before filing for an eviction. The eviction process is as follows. Proceed to the justice court the rental property belongs to, file a complaint or request an order for an eviction if charging with criminal non-payment of rent evictions, and pay the fees. In Arkansas, filing fees cost about $65 statewide. It takes about 3 days to 30 days from the issuance of the notice to vacate, depending on the reason for the eviction and the lease agreement. The next step is to serve the tenant. So first, how do you serve a tenant? An official from the court, such as a sheriff, deputy, or a process server, delivers the summons for the hearing and the complaint to the tenant. There are several methods to accomplish this. Personal service. The court official delivers the summons and complaint to the tenant in person. Substitute service. If the tenant is unavailable, someone living with the tenant who is over the age of 18 may receive the documents. If none of these methods are possible, the court official turns to the following method. Mailing. The server mails the documents via first-class mail or certified mail. Or delivery. Enlisting the services of a delivery company. Landlords and the lawyers are not allowed to serve the tenant in person. They can only do so using the mailing or delivery service. Next, after serving the summons and complaint, in the state of Arkansas, a reply from the tenant is necessary for a court date. If the mailing method is used and the tenant does not reply within 20 days, the landlord has to use another method to resend the documents. The next procedure is if the tenant disagreed and replied. Now, there is no specific specific time frame after receiving the tenant's response for the court hearing to be scheduled. If both parties are present at the hearing, the landlord needs to support their claim and show evidence during the hearing. This could include, but is not limited to, the following: copy of the deed and lease, rent receipts and ledgers, bank statements, witnesses, photo and video documentation of the violations, correspondence, etc. The serving of the documents depends on how quickly the landlord can implement a service to deliver the documents to the client. It can be from a few days to a few weeks, and the tenants have 10 days to respond to the summons and complaint if they are being evicted for criminal non-payment of rent. In all other circumstances, clients only have 5 days to file their response after receiving the summons and complaint. Next, you need to ask for possession by first filing a motion to receive judgment and get a judgment for possession. The landlord has to provide a strong argument backed by solid evidence against the tenant. If the tenant does not show up during the hearing, the landlord wins by default. And just so you know, a hearing is scheduled a few days to a few weeks once the tenant files their answer. Next is getting possession. So after the landlord wins the case, provided that the tenant does not appeal for reconsideration, a right of possession is issued no less than 3 days after the landlord wins this case. The right of possession gives the tenant a maximum of 24 hours from the moment they receive it to vacate the property. The sheriff posts the right of possession on the property. This informs the tenant that they do have that 24 hours to vacate the premise with their belongings. Once the 24 hours are up, the sheriff is allowed to remove the tenant by force. If the tenant refuses, they will be arrested. If the tenant leaves behind any belongings, the landlord is under no obligation to wait for them or give them notice. They can dispose of the belongings or personal property immediately. If the landlord wins the case, they are not allowed to engage in illegal methods of evictions, though. The tenant has 24 hours upon the posting of the right of possession to move out of the property. So let's do a quick summary of the Arkansas eviction timeline. On average, it would take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months for a complete eviction process. Now, I've talked a lot about showing evidence, so let's go over how to keep good records and show that evidence. If the tenant disagrees with the eviction request and they reply to the court, it's important that you keep extremely good records of everything so you can provide proof to the judge and win your case. This part can make or break your entire eviction request in the event of a dispute. There are a few ways to stay organized. Keeping a physical paper trail. This gets very hard to search through though, takes up a lot of storage, and could get lost, damaged, stolen, or burnt in a fire. Scanning documents. Scanning everything onto your computer. Simply by scanning every document onto your computer. By using backups like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, or any other option that's easily searchable. Or using property management software to save everything from lease agreements, signed documents, violations, emails, notes, invoices, payments, reminders, maintenance requests, pictures, videos, and anything you can imagine. This is used best when you also scan every document into your software. And if you want a free demo for DoorLoop's all-in-one property management software, you can click the link in the description down below. Now, if the tenant doesn't pay rent and they dispute the claim, it's important to show the judge the following: your lease agreement, all payments, any payment returns, and all messages. If you're evicting the tenant for lease violations, for example, noise complaints, unauthorized pets, or property damages, it's important to show proof from any of the following methods: security cameras, videos, pictures, and the lease terms. Now let's wrap this up by talking about some frequently asked questions. Can I force a tenant to move out in Arkansas? Absolutely not. A landlord could be sued for forceful evictions of a tenant if they skip the proper eviction processes. In the state of Arkansas, the court determines the damages a landlord has to pay. Which eviction methods are illegal in Arkansas? Self-help evictions are illegal. Examples of such acts include, but are not limited to, cutting off the tenant's electricity, water, and or heat supply, changing the locks to prevent the tenant from entering the property, or vandalizing or destroying the tenant's property. What are the penalties in a self-help eviction in Arkansas? Well, according to the Arkansas Civil Code, you may be liable for tenant's court cost and attorney fees. The statute also gives the tenant the right to stay on the property. A tenant can sue you for actual damages plus violations. Tenants may ask for an injunction prohibiting any further violation during the court action. What other laws should I be aware of in Arkansas? Well, landlords need to be aware of the changes made in the eviction policies in the state of Arkansas, especially in the light of COVID-19 pandemic. It's also wise for landlords to check out laws on security deposits. The deposits protect the landlord in case the tenant violates the terms in a lease or rental agreement or fail to pay the rent. So there you have it. This is a quick overview of the eviction process in Arkansas. I really hope this video helped you out, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Plus, you can check out this playlist for more state evictions or this playlist for landlord-tenant laws. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!